that the only reason why we are on earth is to acquire knowledge and to enrich our experiences. That is all. And that state of acquisition will determine our next incarnation. And that is it. It doesn't matter what you're going through and the kind of experiences you are having. Everything you are going through and every experiences you are going through is part of the package to prepare your experience and to acquire certain knowledge for the collective good of your next incarnation. I was talking to a lawyer friend about relationships and how some marriage partners can be very troublesome. So eventually came to the conclusion that if you are married to a very troublesome husband or wife, that is the lesson you need to acquire. And that is the knowledge you need at that mature point in time. And that is the experiences you would have. Maybe in your next incarnation, you would be a very renowned marriage counselor. And to be a very renowned marriage counselor, you must have experiences with troublesome marriages. So in this present incarnation, you are dealing with troublesome women or troublesome men. Now, when you understand this phenomenon, you take your time and study and learn from their trouble that they put up. Then what happens is that your soul assimilates new dimensions of knowledge in terms of relationship and have new experience, have an upgraded experience. So in your next incarnation, when you come back as a marriage counselor or a renowned relationship conflict expert, you speak of things that you may not have learned in that incarnation, but you naturally seem to know already. And all those things you seem to know already is as a result of your past experience you had in your past incarnation. So we are in this life journey to acquire knowledge and to better our experiences. It's not about all this money and all those things. That is why nobody dies and carries anything away. As a matter of fact, what I know is that when you die, they take your worst of your clothes. You call it a Juma time. You've come to do a nasty work. And they put it in your bed that as the only possession they give to you. They look in all your clothes, the most dirtiest one, the most weakest one. That's what they give to you in the cotton. I don't know that the Jews or the guns call it a Juma time. Why you know? And this is the reality. So the earlier we begin to understand why we are in this world, and we develop that innate ability to be able to connect to the source that will give us the relevant information and knowledge to enhance and enrich our experience before we exit this particular incarnation for a better incarnation in the future. The better, because if we don't, we will be doomed. And that is the reason why today I'm here to give you this information and this knowledge so as it will help you. Though it is fundamental, it is not a holistic thing, it's basic, but it is still better than nothing. And it's going to help you transcend beyond all these illusionary concepts that Uber says so by force. Now when the Akusubi will feel now when you are all this is I don't know where they are coming from. But they are all illusionary and deceptive knowledge. The best anybody can give you is to be able to direct you to find the reason why you are on earth and work in that dimension. We call it life path experiences. And that is why when I cast personality profile, I try as much as possible, if I'm led to do that, because not all personality profiles that I cast has that information in it. But there are some which I have those information are in it. So if I'm led to give you a life path experience, I will calculate to tell you the kind of things you're going to experience or what generally you are supposed to experience in life. I mean, the last one I cast for the guy is talking about so many things. So when I was told to calculate cast his life path experience, and his life path experience is that he's in this life to learn how to give selflessly without any expectation or having any intent of having any reward. And that is where his knowledge and his experience comes from. And this is what he needs to do. So you must live a life, always be willing to help, always be will be willing to give out, always be willing to assist people without having the mind that he will get anything in return. This is his lifetime experience, and this is the knowledge he needs to acquire in this lifetime. So when such a person does anything with the expectation of getting a returns or getting a reward, he has missed the mark. And the kind of lessons he needs to acquire in this lifetime in order for him to trigger him to the next incarnation to a higher and a better place, he will miss it. So everybody is in this world to acquire certain type of knowledge and to have certain experiences. And that knowledge you acquire and the experiences you have in this lifetime will determine your next incarnation. How your next incarnation will be, either an upgraded incarnation or a degraded incarnation. So you must learn to stay within your space. It's not everything you need to pursue in life. It's not everything you need to follow in life. Because whatever it is, even when the madman talks and you listen carefully, it still makes sense. So today, we are going to look at understanding your personality and how to receive inner guidance. What you actually need is inner guidance. Because we don't know how to connect to inner guidance, that is why we always seek for outer guidance. But the greater is within us, not without us. The great guidance is from within. The great direction is from within us. It's not by listening to me, because I don't know you well than you know yourself. The only one that knows you well, knows your personality, knows your soul, knows your lower self and higher self, is your own self. And it is that energy that can give you an unadulterated direction without error and without mistakes. Not me. Not a pastor, not a spiritual leader, not a spiritual teacher. They may all have all those accolades, we may all have those accolades and claim all those appellations and all those, but the truth of the matter is that they cannot teach you what the energy inside you can teach you. And it's a hard truth to say. And the earlier you begin to look to yourself and begin to connect to that energy within yourself, the better it is for you than begin to appreciate things outside of you. Because the greater you are looking for is not the appreciation of things which are external of you, but the greater you look for is the appreciation of things which are internal of you. But the question is, how do you appreciate and connect to that inner guidance? And that is what we are coming to talk to you about today. You see, what we are going to talk about fundamentally boils down on what we call perception or perceiving. How to have a perception, or how do you perceive, or how do you have a perception? And what you perceive depends on your understanding and the way you direct your thought energy. Either you are directing it outward or you are directing it inwards. This is the whole truth about it. And this is the whole issue of our journey on earth. It's either you are listening to information outward or you are listening to information inwards. So you watch that. Anytime I talk, I tell you that in all of these things, you must still know who you are. I always talk about self-realization. It is because of this that I consistently keep talking about self-realization, knowing who you are, self-realization, knowing who you are. I'm not the only person who's talking about it, but that's who I'm talking about it. But that is the key. Self-realization, knowing who you are. Learning how to direct your thought inside and hear from inside, not from outside. Because outside is full of bunch of informations. Outside is full of bunch of ideologies. Outside is full of bunch of dogmas. Outside is full of bunch of doctrines. And in the midst of bunch of doctrines, ideologies, principles, and ideals, you would be confused because you will not have a sense of direction. But if you can learn to be quiet and be still and listen from inside, the inside man, which is the real self, will direct you through the confusion and misunderstandings of this external life. And this is the problem. Because you can see a book on how to become a millionaire, and you have about 1,000 people or 1 million people writing on how to become a millionaire with different doctrines and ideologies. Which one do you follow? Which one do you follow? And that is the problem. Everybody has his own part of the story to tell. And you are busy listening to all other people and their perception and their part of the story of life they have to tell. But the only thing you never do is to listen to your part of the story. Meanwhile, your part of the story is the true story. Because you are you and life is all about you. But you are busy listening to other people's part of the story. You are busy listening to what other people are telling you about spirituality and what they think is right spirituality. What you don't take time to do is to listen to yourself and ask, what are you telling me is the true spirituality? Because I see a lot of people come and talk about dealing with entities as a form of spirituality. And when you know what spirituality truly is, we transcend the limits of mind, then you know where this entity is. But because they lack understanding, they see spiritism as spirituality. But spiritism and spirituality, they are two different things. But we are not today. We are not talking about spiritism and spirituality. Maybe another time I'll have to take another topic and treat spiritism and spirituality, so it will help you and guide you. Because a lot of things you people are following are spiritism, and it is not spirituality. So you must learn to connect to yourself. Now, creating your own perceptions in life are very important because it is your sense of direction. It's either you are having your direction from inside or you are having your direction from outside. If you are having your direction from outside, who are you listening to? You must, if you want to have your direction from outside, what our advice is this: you must have somebody who you are convinced about that the person knows what he is doing. And such a person, I will call it a mentor or a guide. He's only like a signboard. But actually, at the end of the day, it is the you inside you that will travel the journey, not that mentor. Because that mentor or the guide has his own journey to travel. But he will use some of the knowledge he has acquired as a guide, not necessarily as a directive, but as a guide to help you find your own direction. For instance, if I'm from here and I'm going to West Hills Mall, the path is the same, the landmarks are the same, but the experience will change depending on the time we travel. Maybe the time I travel, I may meet the red car on the way, but the time you travel, you may meet the blue car on the way. So if I use my experiences, my personal truth, as the impersonal truth, I'm going to mislead you. And I tell you that anytime you travel on a journey on the path to West Hills Mall, you will meet a red car. That is a deception, because that's a personal truth. Yes, it is true that when I was going, I met a red car, but it is not holistically true that when you two are going to meet a red car. Because in your case, you may meet a blue car. But if I tell you that on your journey or on your way to West Hills Mall, you meet Kaswa interchange, this is an impersonal truth, because that Kaswa interchange, it is there for everybody to see. So that's not impersonal truth. But when you journey through the path, you will still meet the Kaswa interchange. So I can be a mentor or a guide to tell you that when you get to this place, you meet the Kaswa interchange. Go around the roundabout and then turn towards the east. That will direct you to West Hills Mall. If you travel along the line, keep going, don't turn left, don't turn right. As you go, you're going to meet a toll booth. This is an impersonal truth, because the toll booth is there for everybody. I may get to the toll booth and people are hawking at the toll booth. But maybe the time you get there, the hawkers might be closed, depending on the timing. So if I use the hawkers there as a general or impersonal truth, I may be deceiving you. But that is my personal truth. But the existence of the toll booth is the impersonal truth. So this is how we need to journey in this life. Else we will go come back to this physical life, come back to this physical, go to circle of birth and death, birth and death, birth and death, and rebirth, birth and death, and rebirth, and we never had them. And instead of having a shorter period of incarnation in this 1 or 2 lifetimes, you are going to go through eons of incarnations because you refuse to listen to the master which is within you, to create your own perceptions. And that is the problem, and that is what I'm trying to help today, that you iron out. Now, we have 2 forms of perceptions. We have the physical perception and then the non-physical perception. And we are going to see how they work, how the physical perception works, and how the non-physical perception works. But we are going to focus more on the non-physical perception, because the physical perceptions, we all know, we do it, we know how to deal with it already, but we just don't know. Though we deal with it, but most of the time we don't even know how it works. The dynamism. So even the non-physical, we don't even have the physical. We don't even have control over how it functions. So sometimes the functioning go off board, and it begins to malfunction, and people begin to misbehave or misconduct themselves. Because when you have no control over even the physical perception, you tend to have a problem as to how you control that perception, so that person begin to malfunction. So this is what we're going to do. With the physical perception, we are talking about the 5 senses, the senses through which we perceive things in the physical realm. Obviously, it is more than 5, it is 9, but that's the 5 we know, the silent 4. So I'm talking about the major 5 senses through which we used to perceive things in this physical realm. Because either you are perceiving things in the physical realm, or you are perceiving things from the non-physical realm. Actually, the right thing is to perceive from the non-physical realm, then use it to control what happens in the physical realm. That's what the Bible says, that in the invisible, out of the invisible cometh the visible. As above, so below. So always the higher must control the lower. But unfortunately, majority of us, we are living our lives from as below, so above, not as above, so below. We are living our life out of the invisible, out of the visible cometh the invisible. Rather, that it should be out of the invisible cometh the visible. So you are living lives of topsy-turvy. We've turned everything upside down, and that is where our confusion is coming from. So we have 5 senses. Now, these 5 senses of perception within manifest creation, we all know about them. So we are talking about the I don't know if I need to write this. We are talking about the perception of sight, which is the eyes. We are talking about perception of smell, which is the nose, perception of hearing, which is the ear, the perception of taste coming from your tongue, and the perception of skin, that which is touch or feeling. These are the 5 perceptions that happen. So we know that to have a good record. So we have sight, we have smell, we have hearing, we have taste, and we have touch. These are the 5 senses, the 5 major senses we have. Now, what happens is this: we are able to perceive things in the non-physical, in the physical world through these senses. You get it? That is where we are able to perceive things in the physical. So let me give you a phenomenon. Then between the physical senses and the non-physical senses, okay, this is covered by the eye, nose, ear, tongue, and skin. So these are the 5 senses. Senses of physical perception. These are the 5 senses that we use to perceive the physical world. Now, in between these 5 senses, from these 5 senses of the physical world to the senses of the non-physical world, we have the intellect. We have the intellect, we have the sensory or central nervous system, and then we have the last, which is, then we have these 5 senses. Okay, now this is what happens, or let me put it, sense of perception. So these are sense of perception. Let me specify it, because perception is very different. Sense of physical perception. So now, this is what we use to deal with the non-physical realm. We perceive things in the non-physical realm. Now, this is how it works. Let's say you're passing by and then you see a beautiful car. The first thing that happens is that one of your senses will perceive it first from the non-physical realm. So the sight will see the car and see the car is beautiful. At the moment your sight through your eyes perceive that car as beautiful, let me use a more classical scenario that will give us a more holistic approach that has emotion attached to it. Maybe you're passing by, you see a very beautiful woman, you're a single person looking for somebody to marry, you see a very beautiful woman. The first thing that happens is that your eyes will sight the woman. When your eyes sight the woman, it picks the signal and then sends the signal to what we call your central nervous system or your sensory nervous system. This is where emotions are. So literally, when your sight picks the information, it sends it to your emotions. Now your emotions then develops what we call desire. Now, your emotions has no power on its own to take a decision. It only fantasizes, but it does not take decision on its own. What happens is that it sends whichever signal that it picked from sight. You understand? Accompanied with maybe the woman had a very beautiful perfume. But actually, the woman was behind you, and your nose sensed the smell the perfume. So you want to say, what kind of a beautiful smell is this? You turn back, and then the sight sees the beautiful woman. So they work in tandemly. Then, when you are drawn by the smell, the sight perceives the lady, and then it sends that two signals sends the information to the central nervous system, which is the emotions. So you begin to develop emotions, and that emotion produces desire. Now this level has no decision on its own. So this space would then send the signal to the intellect. And the intellect is what you call will. The will is in the intellect. So when it sends the information to the intellect, which is the mind, that we are talking about, the mind. When it picks from the external world, sends it to the central system of emotions. Then the central system of emotions sends it to the intellect. Now what happens is that the intellect will now take a decision whether to pursue the woman or not to pursue the woman. So he will make the decision by will. Then he will reverse the information back. So when it gets to the intellect and says that, oh, but you are going for a business meeting, that business is worth $1 million. To chase this woman, that means you are going to make late for forget about the woman, go for the destiny. He makes a decision. Once he makes a decision, it sends the information back to the sensory perception, and that sensory perception then begins to degrade the desire and the emotions. That's why the desire and emotion diminishes because the will has superimpose the emotions and the desire, naturally you will allow the lady to go. On the other hand, after the intellect, after the sensory perception, picking signals from the sight and smell, nose, sends information to the intellect may decide that yes, this lady is beautiful, you should have her as your wife. It will be very, very nice. Then what is that? It's a go after her. It gives go ahead to emotions and desire. Once it gives go ahead to the emotion and desire, all these five senses will have to comply. So now you talk to the person. That's when we talk about other senses, but we're talking about the five major senses that we've got. The mouth will come in, then the touch will come in, the hand will touch the lady, you realize, oh, the lady has a very beautiful skin, and all of that things comes into play, then you begin to tool that path. Now there's something. Actually, the will is not the decision maker. But sometimes the will plays God, but he's not a God. Because the will hasn't got enough information about your personality. It's just a driver. It's just an intermediary, which is the intellect, which is the mind. It's not a decision maker. But it has certain advantage because your higher self has given you some certain percentage of self-independence, and is overtaking advantage of that self-independence. Ideally, what happens is that when this information gets to the intellect, which is the will examine the information. Then the will have to send it to the real custodian of your personality, which is the self or the soul. Then the soul will now decide, is it the woman that was designed for you before your incarnation to marry or not? So the will would then give information, the self will then give information to the intellect. Because the decision that will come from the information that will come from the self has nothing to do with anything that is intellectual assessment, whether you are going for business or not. If it is the woman you need to marry, the self will give an information that will make you have the woman and at the same time secure the contract. Because if it is within your space. But the will have to choose between the woman or your contract. That which best appeals to the intellect, that is what it's going to choose. So if money best appeals to the intellect will tell you, no, forget about it, go for the money. If woman best appeals to the intellect, you say, no, forget about the money, go for the woman. But it doesn't take those decisions based on relevant data that is decoded from your higher dimension. And this is where a lot of people go wrong. Because a lot of our school has trained us that we must always listen to our minds. So they say, when I do so, think of the thing before you do. No, thinking doesn't solve your problem. That is why an enlightened master, Nikola Tesla, made a statement, and I'm rephrasing the statement. He said that our mind is only a receiver of our inventions. The mind is just a receptacle. It's a receptive signal, like a radio frequency. They say our minds is only a receiver of our invention. There is a call from where the invention comes from. That call we have not penetrated, but that call we know exists. So it's very clear that the mind is just a receiver. But to most people, the mind is the God taking all decisions, because school tells them to think, home tells them to think, other people tell them use your common sense. Everything has to be sense, and we have overemphasized the responsibility and the role of the intellect in our dealings and our errand on this life. And this is where we get it all wrong. Today I want to talk to you about something which is much more higher, and that's actually what you need, and not the intellect. The intellect has nothing to do with your journey on earth. I said this scenario that when the higher self was coming to this earthly experience, it met the soul, okay, which of course they are brothers coming from the same home. There's no much difference between the higher self, which is the spirit, and the soul. They will be in a cousin, you understand? And so Charlie, like Jesus and Peter, somebody in his cousin, Charlie, I want to do this mission. Can you help me go do this mission? And so yes. And there's also, I know a guy who is called the mind, which is the intellect. Where we are going, he knows the terrain very well. He knows the earth terrain. Because he has been to the earth terrain with different incarnations, with different people and back. So the mind knows the terrain very well. Because before I am incarnated, other people have reincarnated, and they reincarnated into the material space with the intellect, with the mind. So the mind, so let's go and get that mind to literally be the driver of the vehicle that will take us through the earth terrain. So they employed the services of the intellect. Because they are sitting at the back of the car, the vehicle of life, and the intellect is sitting behind the steering of the vehicle of life, the intellect thinks that is the dictator. The mind thinks he is the dictator. So when the real dictators are saying, no, it's not also shut up. I know where you are going. I know that you don't know the terrain. Why did you take me? I know the terrain. So then the mind then takes absolute control, directing the soul and the higher self where they are not supposed to go, or where it is not designed within their template to go. There are so many places in this space. There are so many experiences. There are so many knowledge in this space. But the point is that what kind of knowledge did your soul agreed to acquire in this lifetime? What kind of experience did your soul agree to have in this lifetime? That is the problem. But the mind, which is the will, is not giving way to them to have that experience. And this is what a lot, more than 90 to 99% of the people in this universe are locked here.